I've seen a lot of clubs. I kind of draw this pie thing, which is kind of what I like. You use the wheel, which is a great example. But I think fitness clubs in general have done a really good job, and they're really focused on that. But the challenge of that, and with trainers, is that it's very competitive, or it has been. Everyone's kind of going after the similar thing and telling the similar messages, more or less. But I think now there's definitely awareness in terms of, well, you go into your fitness club and it's like, oh, well, actually, I kind of need all of this stuff. And part of that is what you guys were pioneering. There's the recovery element. There's the mental health and wellness and a number of other elements to it. So it seems as though what we all used to focus on was a small part of a bigger wheel or a bigger pie, which is great.
Yeah.
How do you, as whether you're a trainer, operator, business person, how do you then start to think about going after those other wheels? Because you can't, I guess it's difficult to sort of specialize in all of it.
Yeah.
But with your NASM hat on and your trainer hat on, where now in this new world do you start to sort of navigate putting these different pieces together, getting the right education to do that, and make sure that you're sort of, you're moving in a useful direction?
Right. So I think this is a really interesting thing that you're talking about. And one thing to be sure is that as a fitness professional, even a wellness coach, you're not answering everybody's questions. You're not there to fill out the entire wheel, right? People have their spiritual advisors. People have financial advisors. I'm just like a wellness component of it, right? But there's a researcher named Barbara Fredrickson, and I love the work that she does because she works in positive psychology, which has exponentially grown in the last decade. And in one of her research papers, she talks about something called broadening and building. I like this concept, but it is better described as upward spirals. And so we kind of do things where if something bad happens, fitness clients, this is a great example. If something bad happens, they're like, well, I can do that, so I might as well do nothing, and I might as well eat this and forget everything, and it's a massive downward spiral. And so we just try to change the framework a little bit. And I'm like, well, what did you do? What was the little thing that you did? And then build on that, because a lot of times, let's talk about weight loss. All right, let's talk about obesity, because obesity is a metabolic disorder, right? So I would talk about obesity, and people come to fitness and they say, oh, I need to lose weight. And people the doctors, physicians send you to the gym, and they tell you have to do all this stuff because you need to lose weight. And I don't think that that's what you need to do. I think that it can be helpful, but the most helpful thing is to be more active. So here I am talking about your weight, very uncomfortable to hear this information about my weight. I may already be uncomfortable with my own self in that position, and I'm being told to do something that I've been trying to do for years. So you're just telling me what I already know, but what they may not know is just be a bit more active. Like, movement is medicine. And if we can inspire people to movement, and we can get them to take these small doses of movement, and then they take that small dose, and instead of saying, me walking my dog isn't enough to lose weight, it's not the point. Stop with the weight loss. Start with the movement. You don't get to the weight loss before you do those little things anyway. And even if the weight loss never comes, the dyslipidemia will come, or may come, right? The metabolic disorder starts to be somewhat mitigated and blunted because of your physical activity. Physical activity and movement is the medicine, not the fat loss. It's the movement. So move, be active, and that's what I want. And then take the little things that you do and build on them and create the upward spirals. Don't look at it and say 10 minutes of walking isn't going to save me from this. It's not. But 10 minutes of walking is more than no minutes of walking. And so I tell my clients all the time, a little bit of something's better than a whole lot of nothing.
I think that's a great point. I think it's people are starting to look at that and talk about it a little bit more. But don't you think, as an industry, that we're also part of the problem in some respects, where it's like, okay, well, What kind of programs are we selling? How are we marketing ourselves? If you asked probably 100 people off the street, what does a personal trainer do and what happens in the gym, and describe that, we know what they would say, and that probably isn't what they necessarily need. You said the walking example, and there's probably a lot of smaller things in between walking and a reasonable workout, but I suppose even people who work out quite regularly don't need a really intensive workout. They just need to kind of get a little bit of sweat going and get some movement. But it seems as though we're not telling that story. We're not telling the story that, look, you need to get fit. I don't know what even how you would describe it, but there seems to be a real disconnection between what people should do and how we explain that, and how we're marketing ourselves. And either you end up in a program that you shouldn't be in because you're probably going to do a lot more damage, you're going to break down your immunity,
you're right.
You're going to pick up all kinds of whatever, or you're going to just sort of give up because it's too difficult.
That's the one I'm most worried about. I'm most worried about the giving up, because we look at the HHS recommendations for activity, and this is WHO as well, 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity weekly, and that's the low end. So it's 150 minutes to 300 minutes is the recommendation. And I'm now telling you, these are the recommendations, and you're saying, I'm currently at 0 minutes. I do no minutes. So 150 minutes is so stratospheric. It's so far beyond what anybody's thinking about, but we're looking at the recommendations, and we have to balance out what are the recommendations and who am I having a conversation with? And I don't get to 150 minutes unless I get to 15 minutes. Like I need 15 before I get to 150. And they're looking at the 150 going, well, that's so far away, and 15 minutes is so far away from 150 that I might as well keep doing 0. And that's where sometimes we need to take the 150 just off the table, the standard recommendations, and they're there for a reason. And one of the great things there's a book called Exercised by Daniel Lieberman. It's my absolute favorite exercise book I've ever read. It is absolutely delightful. And he basically makes the comment, he was like, if you're the person doing 0 minutes and you start doing 10 minutes, that 10 minutes is so much more beneficial for you than it is for anybody else. Because that is so much more than what you currently do. So don't look at it and say, that's not enough. That's so much more. And don't think about, am I breaking a sweat yet? Don't think about, am I doing all of these things that we perceive as not fun, as difficult or challenging? And let's go back and walk the dog. And just maybe walk the dog around the block a little bit further the next time you go, right? Or we always hear, like, take the stairs instead of the escalators. Get off early on the elevator and take a flight of stairs. And the reason why that's so important, and people don't do it because it doesn't sound like it's enough.
Yeah.
And yet, we also know that the majority of calories that we burn every day are at rest. Doesn't mean that's the best way to burn calories. The active calories we burn are through regular physical activity, not through exercise. Even with regular exercisers, you burn far more activity by movement throughout the day. That NEAT, the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how we burn calories by moving. And so the recommendations I give are just don't sit as much.
Do you think also it's like, okay, you've got your recommendations and it's like, oh, I've ticked that off, but do you think it's also more about creating a habit of like, okay, 3 days a week, because you do a lot on psychology, and in some cases it's creating consistency in a habit that you can continue to do. So even if you did 5 minutes exercise for a year, it's better than doing 1 month of it. And it seems as though in health clubs, so many people just fail to develop any kind of habit, even just like getting up in the morning and walking up and down the stairs once a day. As simple as it is, if you've got that habit, like you say, the upward spiral, you can then maybe do something else and something else. I just feel we're focusing on the wrong thing.
Yeah, and I love this because if So from a coaching perspective, I don't want to set up your habit. I want to work with you for you to set up your habit, right? So I don't want to tell you Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this is what you're going to do. I want to find out what you're willing to do. And then I'll say, all right, well, what do you like doing, right? So let's get this out. And this is coaching strategy, not personal training strategy, and yet this is a personal training award. But the coaching strategy is, all right, now that you've committed, tell me how many minutes a day you're going to do what you already enjoy doing, right? And you say, and you mentioned 5 minutes, right? So the moment you mention 5 minutes, people look up and they go, 5. And the first thing that they're going to think is 5 minutes is not enough. And the words that come out of your mouth are 5 minutes, that's fantastic. What makes you think that you can actually achieve the 5 minutes? Like, that's great. And so what they start to do is talk about all the reasons they can. Now, if I said 5 minutes, why only 5 minutes? Then they're going to spend the rest of the time talking about why they can't.
Right.
So I want to ask why you can do something, even if it's not much. What is empowering you to be able to do that? So you've told me what it was. You told me how long you're going to do it. You've told me what the activity is. You're telling me. I'm just coaching it out of you. I'm trying to have a conversation to get it out of you. And once we get that information and we write it down, then we keep having conversations about it to see if they're happening, and then see what you enjoy about it and what you liked about it. And just as, acknowledge that there are things that you may not enjoy from time to time, and then see if there needs to be pivoting that takes place. Do we need to look for something else? Do we need to do less time? Do we need to take a day off the table? What are the things that we need to do? What do you feel comfortable with, right? And having them deliver what they can do, because most people do much better at goals they set for themselves in this environment than they do by having somebody tell them what they're supposed to do.